Welcome everybody to the May 24th meeting of the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. It's been a long time. We were together last night for the joint meeting with the school board and the Health and Ed Committee. We'll start off by looking over the minutes for the May 16th meeting, or considering them. I hope everybody got a chance to look at those. They were emailed out a few days ago. And if so, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Well, now we're going to ask Mayor Reed from Smyrna to join us, and we're going to consider our county contribution for the Jeff Coos Memorial.
Good evening.
Mayor?
It's good to see you all again tonight. Last night I was before you and did the presentation about the Jeff Coos Memorial. I will tell you we've gotten word today that the plane is on its way to Mobile tonight. And the plane will be in Mobile, spend the night in Mobile, and then we'll be on in tomorrow. We hope somewhere between 11 and 1 is the window that they're giving us. But we are coming to you tonight to ask if you would consider contributing $100,000 to the project. It's a project that we feel that is a good project not only for the town of Smyrna but for the entire county. So I'm happy to answer any questions after the presentation that we had last night, and anything I can do to answer questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What's the total cost that
Total-
you think it'll be?
Total cost that we're seeing right now is right at $1 million. We have got it with the company right now to put the bid specs together. I think we all know that bids are not always coming back in. We did put a 15% contingency in, so we're hoping to stay right within that.
Yes, you have a question.
Sure.
If the Thunderbirds come the next time, 2 years, or whenever you have the next, what happens if a similar incident happens then? Or heaven forbid, 2 of them touch wings and go in?
I don't know that I can answer that right off because I've not thought about that. I will.
Well, we hate to think about it.
We do hate to think about that. So I'll be honest, I don't know that I can answer that right off for you.
Well, and this is, I mean, I think it's a unique set of circumstances, not only because of how tragically it happened, and we've gone so many years, of course, without an accident, but also his intention of sacrificing himself to save others. So it's not just that it crashed, it was his intent of how he maneuvered that plane in such a way that no other lives were lost. So, God forbid other people, other pilots, experience that in the future. I certainly hope that's never the case, but I think we probably feel compelled to honor them in some way.
And when you look at the area where the plane went down, we are so lucky as a community that it didn't hit those apartment buildings or the school or Nissan or those other places. So yeah, I agree, Rhonda. We would probably honor that individual in a certain way as well. I don't know exactly to what degree.
I would like to ask Mayor Burgess or maybe Lisa, whichever, what is the recommendation as far as whether this fiscal year, next fiscal year? Talking development tax, are we not? But what is the timeliness? I mean, we could do this immediately and not even go into next year's budget. I mean, I'm looking for and who's got a recommendation? When do you need the money? Might be another question.
I think it ought to be a commitment to fund this. I don't think we ought to give over the money until they're pretty sure that they're going to be able to raise the total amount of money that it takes to do this. So I think we ought to commit it in the next fiscal year's budget.
With a pledge.
The pledge to put the $100,000 in when we have confirmation that they've been able to raise the $1 million or whatever it is in total, and the project will be actually executed fully.
So we'd handle it similar to the way we're doing Motlow's contribution, where we pledged it and then putting it in the budget for this year.
And it would come from development tax, we feel.
That I would show it that way. As we talk about the budgets, I will tell you how I will handle it.
If there are no more questions, that'll be my motion, that we pledge the money contingent upon Smyrna's ability to secure additional funding, and that it would be reflected in next year's budget.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second her motion. And something I want to add to that, you know, my father worked at Seward Air Force Base. He was a civil engineer out there. A lot of people don't remember when that base was alive and active and how many employees there were across Rutherford County and mid-state here. But, you know, I could go on and on about the number of people that there. I actually had an uncle that served out there. So, I mean, it just goes on. Family connections for me, but not just me, but all of our community around here. So Seward's always been a close place in our hearts.
Great.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Does there need to be any flexibility in this motion where if this thing takes longer than next year's budget, we just roll it to the next year if it takes you that long to get there? That wouldn't be a problem.
That
would
wouldn't
it?
be a problem.
Wouldn't be a problem, okay? If there's no further questions or comments, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
This time I've got to abstain. I've got to do more thinking on it.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Hopefully we'll be coming to see y'all July 1.
That'd be fine. That's good.
Well, then this will go to the full commission
On the 15th.
on the 15th. and
Great.
so
Thank you all.
There might be some questions that night.
Okay, we'll be
Yeah.
prepared. Thanks.
Let's move right into the 2017-18 budget review. Central Cafeteria Fund, Revenue and Expenditures, tab 13. And hopefully this is pretty fresh on everybody's mind because the first four items are the exact same thing we did last night. So
Revenue is estimated at $19,367,000. Appropriations, $20,080,425. We're estimating, well, right now, I'm gonna go to this page because I've got an update on those numbers. 3,494,000, didn't change that much. Yeah. With using 700,000 of fund balance, estimated ending fund balance is $2,780,000.
any questions or comment on the cafeteria budget?
That, I mean, by statute, we have to keep that at a certain level and a certain percentage.
On this one, it cannot exceed. They can't exceed 3 months' worth of appropriations.
But I mean, this is one that they really keep a close handle on, so I mean, we're not blowing our budget out anything or being
Oh, no.
extravagant in any way. And a lot of people see these numbers and they don't know that or what we're doing with that. But having said that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne.
Second.
Commissioner Allen? Any further questions or discussion? I believe at this point we'll call the roll on these few tonight since we are dealing with the end game to some extent. So we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Educational capital projects, revenue and expenditures, tab 14.
14. The school board just might have just a few $1,000s more than I did on revenue, but recommending revenue at $4,261,365, expenditures $4,265,340. That keeps their fund balance about at $1.8 million.
Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Any questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We'll go to general purpose school fund revenue, tab 11.
Well, that's what we had. You've got your new documents last night. And estimated revenue for schools is $357,356,112. Appropriations, $364,221,644. That's a use of fund balance of $6,865,532. Without, on a budgetary basis, their beginning fund balance is $22,497,700. This draws it down to $15,632,000. That's about a almost 4.3% fund balance of appropriations.
Any questions we've got? Mr. Sandy, Mr. Owen, Chairman of the School Board off here, ready to answer any questions?
We're, in our estimates of sales tax, was it conservative this year on the total for next year coming?
You know about for next year's?
Yeah,
Okay, so what we estimated is we're about 8.1% more than what we were last year at this time on sales tax. So we estimated 8% for the full year and a 4% for next year.
Okay.
That's how that was calculated.
Okay. We went through it all last night, so I'll make a motion to approve the general purpose school budget.
Second.
Are we approving the full budget or the revenue side of it right now? Because I've got revenue and expenditure on two different line items.
Whatever you want
Whatever
to do.
he wants his motion to be. With me, I can work with it.
Well, I mean, the motion's on the budget. We all heard it last night in detail. So, yeah, is that clear on our motion and our second? All right, that was Commissioner Schaefer and Commissioner Allen, and the second, did you not? All right. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bob?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. All right, are we going, now we're, well, that covers both of those. So we're going to go down to the general fund budget transfer circuit court clerk. Is that what we're going to do next, or?
Any other budgets?
Any other
Oh,
budgets?
yeah.
That's what we're going to do, any
Oh, I
other
think we did. I
budgets.
thought we were going to. What our plan is, unless there's objection, we're going to review the other budgets right now and we're going to cancel next week's meeting because there wasn't any point in coming here for 15 minutes and coming back next week, because this has been such a seamless budget process so far. If we run into problems next few minutes, we can always go ahead with next week's meeting. But the plan is to skip that meeting. And
Okay.
Ms. Nolan.
All right, so I gave you a handout, and the first one is a revision to the local health department. And as Ms. Garrett was speaking, she was talking about her change in personnel and how she would give her some part-time hours, and I've heard that because I didn't remember additional part-time. So I spoke to her, and it was just something that I missed in a document she'd given me. So it was to add, I needed to add 9,400, and that's on your top line for part-time. And this was, if you remember, she's given up a position to make some changes, and then it was an LPN position she's given up to give her some RN hours on a PRN basis. So that's this one, and it would be increasing it from $653,538 to $663,668. Okay.
10,130 total.
Yes, 10,130 total.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Page. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
If you go to this long sheet, the second sheet that's in that packet, these are all the changes that we have made to the general fund since we began our adventure, beginning in May 4th. So right now, this 10,130 is in it. Now, what's not reflected is the 100,000, and that's simple enough to add. That would take our total to $96,121,511 is what the appropriations were. So the change to fund balance would be $7,256,325. We still, even with this 100, the way I'm going to handle that is show a reduction of our restricted for fund balance instead of showing as a reduction of our unassigned fund balance. I'll show it as a reduction of restricted, that 100,000. That's why it should still, the unassigned fund balance will be about what we've got on this page. So with your approvals as we've gone through, this is where we stand right now. Now, you have something?
Mr. Chairman, you might not have heard all of the purchasing committee meeting today, but we took some bids. I want to bring this up now. We took bids back a month ago, and we have been working on iterating on this bid. One in particular for this upgrade for the HVAC in this building that's been discussed for a few years now. We don't have enough money. Ben does not have enough money in the building improvements line item to actually do the project. We got about $350,000 that we can carry forward from this year to next, but it's about $460,000 it's going to take us to do this, and this is probably our best opportunity. We've had to iterate on this to get it down. They bid it like $750,000 to start with, so we're going to need another $110,000 to finish this project. We can't accept the bid until we get funding in place that we know will be available. We won't spend the money until next year. In fact, now the work's going to even start till July the 1st. But
So you'd, like if they put the money in
we need to add $110,000 to the
current year's budget?
current. Well, it could be current year or next year,
That's what I'm
whatever
saying,
you
we do it.
choose to
In the
do.
proposed
It could
budget.
be July 1st. It'll
Well-
go in July 1st, right?
Well, I
Well,
was
she
gonna
can
say-
carry it forward in
Yeah,
as
we
a
can carry it
capital
forward.
component.
If they issue the contract in this year, I mean, we'll just issue the PO in this year, and then it would be paid out into next year.
So if we're going to make some changes, I just want to tell you about that, so maybe we can get that $110,000 in place, because we can't really amend the contract and execute a contract till we've got dollars available.
Depending on the direction we want to go, if we want to amend it and do it in this year, we bring that up under the
Yes, you could.
regular budget
In
meeting
next budget meeting.
and then go through the next commission
Either
meeting.
way will work fine. I just wanted to let you know we're going to need to have that discussion.
Why don't we do it right
Recommendation.
now?
Huh?
Why don't we do it right now?
For next year's budget, or
Well, we
I
could do
would
it for
put it-
either one.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, he's got money in this year's budget for it, he just needs another 100,000,
Another
right? So that's why I would
110,000.
say amend this year's budget. But this is one that we would need to take to the full commission
yeah.
in June.
Just
So
all
we
I
can
said
put
was-
that on our June meeting when we talk.
We've got
A lot
we've got
easier to carry it through.
We've got the school
Yeah.
systems standard amendments we did at the start of the meeting last night. We're not looking at them tonight, we're doing them at the regular meeting. That would fit more in the standard
Okay.
profile if
Yeah.
we were gonna do it that way. But if it's a recommendation, we do it in next year's budget, I mean,
I don't have any problem, because we're not going to spend it till next year, but
We can
as long as we
cover
get
it.
the money set aside and approved so that we can actually move forward. So let's do it as an amendment and get it approved through the commission in June, if that's what you wish.
property management already met. Would it start at property management?
No.
No, they've already done
It's-
it.
It's already,
I know, but where does Ben usually start his process?
well, on these kinds of things, they usually put in his budget.
I just didn't want to sidestep without notifying a chairman. If it usually went through property management or something.
That wouldn't normally go there.
Okay. Well, I think we've got that figured out.
Okay? Thank you.
Next.
Okay. Okay, so is there anything else that,
No, I don't
for
have any.
today's meeting that might affect next year's budget?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, so the next page, 116, it was an adjustment to revenue. And this was the litter grant, if you remember, it came through at 96,000 and then came back at 113. So I amended the revenue to reflect that. So revenue in Fund 116, $4,207,200 is the only change because the expenditures are agreed to. And then the last page is the summary of all that we've done. Do we need to vote? Okay.
You wanna get action on this by itself?
Well, might as well, we're here.
On Fund 116, I move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ely.
Second.
Commissioner Allen, that's just amend the numbers as just stated
For
by
the litter grant adjustment.
Litter Grant. And if there's no further questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right.
Okay, so here's the big sheet. This is everything that we voted on. So all the funds together, again, it's the budgetary fund balance. And I say the budgetary because that's where our budget is right now. In June, when we come back to our regular meeting, we'll adjust revenues based on what we think is going to happen. And then we'll give an estimate of what we think won't be spent. So I guess I'll look at this and say I'm hopeful that these beginning fund balances will improve. At this point, I just don't know how much. So all fund balances total $109,699,805. Our estimated revenues for all of these funds total $545,766,861, with the appropriations at $561,892,547. What did I say? 8.
We had 9,000,
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Mark.
992.
992. Thank you. I gotta do that. Okay. Our revenues will be under our appropriations by $16,225,686. And in this adjustment column, that's where I would put the 100,000, reflecting it's coming from a different fund balance than our unassigned. So our unassigned should stay kind of close to the same.
Of course, that's 16,125,000 in revenues, appropriations over revenue is with standard government accounting, budgeting,
That's
where you
budget.
budget, where you spend every penny and you bring in worst case scenario. So those numbers will be much better than that.
We've never
And
spent.
realistically, you're not
we
going to
have-
spend it all.
We've never spent everything that we've
Yeah.
appropriated,
And when
ever.
you budget conservatively, your numbers come in better than expected.
Our
And
revenues.
stuff, your revenues numbers, so that number is a worst case scenario number.
Right. Is that if,
And it's not going to be that
if
bad.
if we spent everything we said we're going to spend and we only get what we're going to get, that's how I look at this. We meet our policies. And right now, the fund balance in the general fund is just 0.25% away from being 16%. Schools are at 4.29, and debt service is almost 82%. So I guess what we're asking, unless there is something that we don't know about, that's what we were thinking we could, if you were ready to propose this is what we would be proposing for publication.
This is basically the compilation of everything we voted for the last several weeks. We voted on every one of these line items as we've gone along. And now it's just time to reaffirm what we've already said to some extent.
The other thing I want to bring up is this column over here. It says to balance. If you wanted to, that your revenues agree to your appropriations, that you were not using your fund balance, you would need another almost 26 cents. So another way to say that is we're using 26 cents worth of property tax out of the fund balance,
Potentially.
potentially.
I guess there's one thing I want to discuss as we approach and get very close to publishing this budget and canceling our June 1st meeting, and that is how we're allocating these property tax pennies. I guess I'm real comfortable with this budget. I think we all are. The thing in here that probably troubles me the most is looking ahead 3 or 4 years to our fund balance for debt service. And according to the information I have, we can't service that past the 2018-19 fiscal year. In other words, when we get to 2019-2020, we've got a projected shortfall. So that's the thing that troubles me the most. And so what I think I'd like to ask us to discuss is whether it would be fiscally responsible to move a couple of pennies to debt service so that we have a chance to push that shortfall out another year or two. And let me just give an example to start the discussion. In 2019-2020, our projected shortfall is 5.3 million, and I know a lot can change between now and then, but that's our best estimate today. 2 pennies are worth approximately 1.4 million. I know it's actually 675,000 per penny. If you just use really, really rough numbers, that's 700,000 per penny, multiply it by 2, that's 1.4 million. If we were to move 2 pennies into debt service now, they could go into debt service for really 3 fiscal years before we get to this shortfall, and 1.4 million times 3 years is almost this 5.3 million shortfall. In other words, I guess to get the discussion started, if we were to move 2 pennies into debt service, we could push this potential shortfall out an entire fiscal year. And you know, I mean, I know this is all going to happen when our terms are over, but still, I think we would be really serving the county well, and we'd be being fiscally responsible if we were to address this looming shortfall. And I think one of the benefits would be, I think it'd make it a lot easier for us as commissioners to vote for some of these new schools that are going to be proposed over the next year or two, if we know that we've addressed this potential shortfall and maybe even pushed it out an additional fiscal year. It makes it easier to vote for these new capital projects, and so really I'm proposing this to be fiscally responsible, but also to facilitate building new schools.
You got a rebuttal?
Whew. Okay, so one of the things that I'm a little uncomfortable with is building our fund balance in debt service. There's an issue in whether or not our debt service is considered a bona fide debt service, meaning in IRS terms or SEC terms, really the debt service should clean out. It should be what you put in for, you know, that you pay what is due. And there is discussion. When I say discussion, it keeps coming about, you know, do we have a bona fide debt service or do we not? And right now, I can prove that all the money in the fund balance, I mean, it's been a balancing act, that what money we put in there that we have gained that's in fund balance has been choice revenue. And what I mean by that, when you flip to the revenue, choice as opposed to restricted. Now, when you raise property, when you have property tax, that first line, 4110, that's restricted. It has to be spent. Debt service. That one is not debt service, development tax. When you put that statute in place, that's the private act, half of it goes to debt service, half of it goes to capital. That's restricted. It's got to be spent. So as we go through this, it's like that money gets spent first. The other is choice revenue. And so I just, that's what makes me uneasy, just building that fund, because we're going to have, our beginning fund balance is going to be more than what I'm showing right now.
And she's showing it's going to be at 82%.
We're at 82%.
I understand what you're saying. You're suggesting we don't want to stockpile money in that fund.
Right.
And yet, with these looming shortfalls beginning in 2019, it seems like we need to address it. If there wasn't a potential future shortfall, I could see how you wouldn't want to stockpile money in that fund, but we know that it's not going to stay that way permanently. It's just going to have a positive balance, a surplus for a few more fiscal years, and then that reverses.
Did we put a couple of pennies in this a year or two or three ago or not?
Last year, we moved 2 pennies, and it's sort of the same.
No, we put 5 pennies from schools, right? 5 plus 2?
Yeah.
2 at the
Or
end.
maybe
So
it was
we've
2
got
from the general fund.
just 2 from the general fund, but we put a lot of pennies in there this fiscal year. And on top of this fiscal year, we've got additional development tax that's gone in there. And interest off of these monies is in there too now. So, I mean, it's.
Well, maybe we
quite a
moved
bit
7
better.
pennies last year, and I'm just discussing moving 2 pennies this year, so maybe scaling back a little bit. And if it's unpopular
We
and
can get
people don't
that
want to
out.
do it, I understand, but I think it would be a wise thing for our future and to leave our county in
Yeah.
better shape.
I
Take it out
think
of
if we want to
school
take it out of the school board, Lisa and I might consent to that.
Well, I understand that, but I think I mean, I can see how
We don't really have any
that's.
margin in the general fund.
And that's concerning to me because of how many positions that we're putting in partial year that we're going to have full year next year.
And one other thing I want to remind you, the ambulance fund is going to have pennies, not this next fiscal year, but the one after that. There's probably not any way for us to escape putting another penny or 2 into that fund, out of general fund.
Well, I do think we set a good example if we don't take it all out of schools, if we take some of it out of other accounts so that we're all, if this is an approach that people believe has merit, then I think that we ought to take a portion of this out of more funds than just the schools fund so that we're all bearing a little bit of the burden.
Well,
And just setting a good example.
I guess my counter to that is the schools, as you saw, have got how much from the state this year?
13 something.
And
14 million in new revenue.
And when the sales tax comes in, it doesn't matter where it's coming straight to them. And the general fund does not have that flexibility. They do not get the increase in sales tax that the schools get. So the county general is just so limited in its revenue. And so, I guess that's why to see how they, come out, it just knew that it would hurt us.
I think
at
this
some
is all a
point.
good discussion, and I think we all need to be staying, and I think Lisa needs to be getting some numbers together, but I'm looking at our calendar, and on June 19th, we make our final, this committee makes our final adjustments, and I think we'll be farther in the process at that point in time. You'll have more, hopefully, more ending numbers.
Fund balance,
and
yeah.
Fund balance numbers, and in my opinion, that would be the time to actually move it if we wait as long as we
And
could.
that's usually
and at
what
the
we
end,
do.
You
move it
wouldn't
on.
move it before you publish the budget?
Last year we did it, if I'm not mistaken,
We did it
last year we did it
after we published the
after
budget?
that, at the very end. We wait as long as we
I don't
can
remember that.
to see where the numbers are gonna come in.
I don't think we wanted to make changes after we published it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you're really publishing, what your revenues are and what your appropriations are. I think the big concern is, oh, this is how much you appropriated, oh, by the way, we're gonna do this too. You've told the people.
I don't think anybody's talking about throwing an extra $2 million in the expenditure line item. but
Which
we're
is
just-
more concerning, is
but-
like, how are we going to fund it? And that discussion,
I thought that's where the last 2 pennies came in. The 5 cents was in there the whole time. And and I may be off base here, but I thought at that meeting at the end, that's when we said, well, the projections look pretty good, let's move 2 cents. And I thought that's when we did it
at
at the last meeting before we went to the full commission.
Feels right.
And I think the big, to me, as far as the public is concerned, is that you don't do something at the end where you've gone. To me, the most important part is that you've told the public $2.68, and then at the last minute come in and say, oh, just kidding, 5 more cents.
Maybe the public wouldn't mind if we rearranged the allocation of the property taxes.
Yeah, that's all I'm suggesting is,
Well,
when we
that's
get those
probably
numbers as
fine.
far as we can get them, and then make the decision if it's the money, but I'm not gonna sit here and recommend we decide at the last, oh, let's throw an extra nickel on the tax rate. No, that's, I don't think that's even legal. Or it shouldn't
Well, I mean,
be.
you could, but
Well, it shouldn't be.
shouldn't be. And I tell you, I remember one year that it came from, I just remember it because Commissioner Jernigan may remember, he left here at this time with 3 cents added in. And they changed, it went through the committee, I guess we had had a budget meeting and voted, no, we're gonna take that 3 cents out. So what we published, we undid on the, right there at public hearing. It's like, okay, that's what we published. We're not doing any kind of increase. So we've done it that way, but we've not added on top of what we had published.
I think as long as you publish worst case scenario, you can always lower the tax rate. I think, and nobody would complain if we came in at the meeting on the full commission and lowered the tax rate. But I don't think we
Right.
want to advertise one rate
And then
then
come
go
up
higher.
more.
Well, I tend to agree with Commissioner Baum. I'd like to see that debt service kept as low as possible whenever we can. And if we can, put 2 cents into it somewhere along the line, and I'm not saying where, but, that's certainly an idea that I would entertain. That's why I was asking and brought that debt service up at our last meeting. Something concerns me seeing that debt grow like that. Why I wanted half of this development tax going toward the debt, so we knew we had that much going at it anyway. And I wouldn't be adverse to, maybe us putting a little more in there if we needed to, but y'all made a good argument on that the other night, so. Anyway, I would like to see how you think those numbers would affect us, and the way I recall it is, like Charlie, I think we moved those 7 cents before. Because I
That's-
remember you
Mark quickly.
saying after the revenues came in, you were going, oh, well, that's good.
And you're right, because Mark just looked it up. He said we did do it
But,
before
I know
publication.
these numbers are conservative, but there's only $700,000 in excess of the 15% requirement available, according to our projections.
Right, yeah.
There's only 1 penny there, and it would be right on the 15%.
Maybe it could be a 1.5 penny versus a half penny split between general fund and schools.
The schools are trying to open Stewart's Creek next year out of ending fund balance. We're hoping they're going to, Rock Vale.
That would Rock Vale.
Rock Vale, I'm talking about the high school, that's going to be the killer when the high school opens.
Yeah. Well, and I have kind of an ancillary concern. Are you still seeing discussions of changes for municipal bonds at the federal level?
I heard a lot of discussions
You mean an increase in
Ending.
interest cost?
ending tax
Ending
exempt
tax exempt
status.
status.
Oh.
And one of the things that I had, Kim Williams put together a 3-year comparison of our Title I, Title II, and IDEA funds. And just me looking at that 3-year comparison, because we faced some significant cuts in this version of it. Cuts as in drop in dollar level, not drop in increase, but absolute cuts. And one of the things that it kind of looked to me, and my understanding is a lot of systems are similar to this, that the carryover funds that we have in these federal projects, I think someone at the federal level looked at the carryover funds, and they're not spending these in the year, we can cut. So if it was 800,000, you were carrying over 200,000, we're going to cut it to 600, so you'll still have 200, and we haven't cut you. Well, they really have, because it's a different fiscal year that we try to fit into our state year. So I think at the national level, they are looking at some of these fund levels in aggregate governmental financial statements. So I have that concern with the discussion on municipal bonds. That could be a major change for us if that happens.
So we get a lesser rate on our bonds because it is tax exempt.
Yeah.
They're not near as attractive for
Yeah.
investors, One way to look at it is if the money's in the general fund or some of the stuff we might go to bond market to buy, we pay cash for. And if you look in that direction, and of course, that first argument, that is if you got the money sitting there, you might just spend it where you wouldn't otherwise, so you got to hold discipline things. What are the wishes of the committee? Do we want to approve this as projected? Do we want to try and move some pennies now, move some pennies later? Open for,
Well, if we move pennies from the school, the general purpose school, then we gain $100,000, right?
well,
Then
Because it's not shared.
that penny
That's
that's
a
moved
shared penny,
becomes, it's not shared. And how can you, and then how can you give it back? Just say, you give it back when you need to give it back? I mean, it was a penny.
You can't give it back, and you could change the allocation. You could put pennies back
Yeah.
into the operating piece as opposed to the debt service.
Next year.
Sometimes over time, these transfers kind of get dispersed and forgotten. Like we moved 7 pennies last year, and that's not felt right now. It's been a year, and it's sort of gotten absorbed in the process, and we barely remember doing it now. We didn't even remember the amount.
I remember that.
Well,
Well, we've taken.
I mean, I don't, but I mean, yeah, over time, you sort of,
Well, we've taken pennies from debt service in the past, and we took some from ambulance service a couple of years ago. So, you know.
You've put it in.
You're
Yeah,
taking-
over the years.
as
you've
what's
built up
needed.
debt service, and then for whatever reason, you didn't build as fast as you thought you were gonna build or whatever, and then you didn't wanna raise taxes, so you met your objectives and moved pennies out. We've done that both ways, in and out.
You can move the pennies in and out, but once the money's in debt service.
It
then
stays.
It stays. We can't move it back to operating
Money.
uses.
It gets banked.
But you can,
But next year, you
Now,
can
you
adjust the
could.
You could
budget.
adjust it next year, yes.
but you could move money from the general
You
fund
can
into
move it.
Deb's.
Yes. You
anywhere.
could transfer money out of the general fund. I mean,
And-
it is general, so you could
Anywhere
throw it
it's
to
needed.
ambulance, you could take it to solid waste,
You could put it in debt service.
you could put it in debt service.
You could
just
just
can't
tell
do it
yourself
the
not
other
to
way.
spend the money, make sure you didn't spend the money.
Yeah. So you could leave it in general fund for, till 1920, and then if it's needed for debt service that year, that money could go back into debt service very easily. And this way, you could put it in, the money could be gained in, what is it, your municipal funds that the trustee puts it in?
The debt service funds are drawing.
No, not the debt service, but
But
if it's
LGIP.
kept in the general, yeah, LGIP, if it's kept in the general fund, right?
Most of it is.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of scenarios.
well, I still think it's more likely to be used to fund the debt for new schools if you go ahead and move it over there. If you leave it in the general fund, then it's less likely to be there in a couple of years when you discover you need it.
And
You're saying our county's like most Americans. they're gonna
Exactly.
spend it if they got it, right?
And I would say in Moody's last letter, they're looking at, Moody's is looking at our fund balance in the general fund. And in this last thing, and I should have brought it today because it's going out tomorrow, the 25th, that how our fund balance and the general fund is less than what other people in this category is. We are just slightly under, and I'd hate to see our fund balance erode out of the general fund.
And at 15.76, there's no flexibility right now. Percent.
I mean, it's a balance. I mean, I understand where you're going from, but,
That's SS without taking a penny and a half out or something like that.
Yeah. There's only 0.7% of the appropriations available above 15.
I want to say we had the same discussion last year.
We did.
About bond
We had the exact same discussion.
We moved 2 pennies.
I made it
Yeah, we wound up
which meeting it was in, but we
I
had the
don't
exact
think it
same
affected
discussion.
our bond rating. Well, I mean, in some ways, I think we ought to address this tonight before we publish in the newspaper. And I think in the interest of fiscal responsibility and in the interest of facilitating building new schools and approving proposals and motions for new schools next year and then year after that, I'm going to make a motion to move a penny and a half of the property tax rate out of general schools into debt service and a half a penny out of the general fund into debt service. So it adds up to 2 pennies, 1.5 from schools and half from the general fund.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Will any of this affect our maintenance of effort on schools or anything like that? We'll all be okay. Further discussion?
And that should generate 1.4 million.
Well, over a 3-year period. 2 pennies, well, 2 pennies are about 1.4 million, not quite, but
Million,
close.
350,
And over a 3-year period, that would basically address the $5.3 million
Just
shortfall.
over 4 million.
These numbers don't work
Yeah.
out exactly like that, but this is approximate calculations. Over a 3-year period, this would address the 2019-2020 shortfall so that you could push back a potential shortfall by 1 year.
But Ms. Nolan, you think that this could potentially affect our bond
I
rating?
just, I just, if y'all don't mind, I'll run and get the letter to show you what, just
This
what,
could be,
just their
this could
concern.
be a big deal if this did affect the bond rating.
It affects our
Costs us a
interest
whole lot
rate.
more than 2 pennies.
Before you go out, let me ask a question. Because I think Charlie's point is really well made. That bill's not going down. The bill for schools is just going to keep going up. So anything we can do to, help, monitor that, keep money flowing towards that, I think is a really smart thing to do. But I don't want there to be an unintended consequence that none of us can calculate right now of what that might mean to the bond rating. You've always done a really good job of reminding us of projects we've already committed to, and things that are going to come due. Is there some way to do that? Keep the money in general services or in the general fund like we've done, but have you sort of hold us accountable for, keep in mind you want to keep this much money because you plan to apply this at the end of the year, so that we actually do it. Instead of like the fear is, which is that if it's in there, well, it'll be gone.
Right, I mean, it's.
So is there a way that you could almost like, I'm thinking like virtually treat it like it's a line item that's committed to make sure that we stay in those balances?
That's
You
only
can
on the
commit it.
half cent in the general fund, that's not on
You
the
could commit
half
it,
from
you
schools.
could
You
keep
couldn't
it
do
there
that with
and
the school
commit
penny
it.
and
I
a
mean,
half.
you could keep the half and commit it. It stays in the general fund. It stays as part of our fund balance. Commitments can undo pretty easily. I mean, you can vote, and you can vote to say, okay, we've committed it, we're now ready to send it.
And we would send it when? June 1 of next year? When do you send it?
The
I would
last-
say,
the last day of the fiscal
this is
year.
what I would do. I would
Next year.
commit it and keep it. And then when you get a struggle in debt service, it's like, okay,
What do you say?
you know that money that we've set aside in the general fund, it's committed for debt service, we're committing it.
So it still lives in the general
It
purpose.
lives in the general fund,
But we don't touch it.
but you don't touch it. We commit it.
But you're only talking about $337,000,
If we do it on those numbers.
unless you move that penny and a half from the school into general fund. Because he's talking about a penny and a half from the school. Also, that's
A penny and a
3/4 of
half
this.
for them, and a half a penny.
Yeah, you
for
can
us.
only do that with that half a penny. That's the only one that's
It's the only one you could do it is the half a penny.
Which is 330-something.
It still could have a negative effect on the bond rating, because it's not
It's-
unrestricted.
It's-
No, but, yeah, but they're looking at 26%. They're not,
They're not gonna look
they're looking at in total.
okay.
And like you said, commitments can be undone, where if it goes to debt service, that's a one-way street.
And a couple of points. I mentioned the ambulance service. They're going to have additional money next year. So if we push down the general funds amounts that we have in excess of 15, we're not going to have any money from which to get that penny at least we're going to need. So we're going to have to raise taxes.
Either raise taxes or then you end up moving out of debt service into.
Or move it back from
But
debt
we move
service.
it back, yeah, okay, or we move it back. Yeah, that's the only two places you got. I haven't really looked at this carefully, Mr. Odom and Mr. Sandvik, but we've been in a real good position with fund balances from the operating school budget to actually contribute substantial dollars. This will be the second year it's been major. And if you look at what's happening with their fund balance, I know they're conservative. They're going to be down to 4.29% after this. And that's probably going to wind up a little better than that as time goes forward, but we have to keep 3% there. The ability that they've had to offset these increases in operating expenditures has been good. If we take another penny and a half out of what they got, we're going to squeeze them down so tight they can't function operationally. That's sort of my take on this. And we're going to have to put money back through a property tax increase or move it back out of debt service. I think I don't think it's the prudent, wise thing to do at this moment.
The other point, and not just this current year, but when you look back in history, and I'll say history being Lisa's last 15 years here, there's been many times that the fund balance at schools came in better and they sent that excess into capital projects. So instead of, well, just this year, $11 million, they moved out of their fund balance and put it into their capital. That's $11 million that we did not have to fund over 20 years. So, I mean, I think that's a good balance that, you know, people say, why can't you just go ahead and build a school? Well, you know, can't always build a school, but we've been able to do that in years
Purchased
to where
property in the past, we've done
you've purchased property, you've taken care of the, all the furnitures and fixtures in some of it. You know, we budgeted for it, but didn't have to borrow it because they had it at their ending and put it in, which ultimately reduced the amount of needing to borrow.
Well, and Rockvale High School is going, the operating costs of a comprehensive high school that first year, as it's open a couple of years, we will see that leveling out of those various fixed and semi-fixed costs, but we will have stiff increased fixed costs for that 2019 opening, right, Mr. Owen?
1920.
Yeah, 1920 opening.
But you got something else. If you take a penny from the school board, you gain 17% interest on that $575,000 that year. Which if it winds up, you give it back and it goes to Rockvale High School, then you don't lose any of that.
We don't have to share any money on the high school.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, but right now.
On operations, we do.
On operations.
Yeah.
But right
On
now,
construction.
it's 575 is what theirs is worth there, versus 675 for the general fund. That's, if you can do something there, you gain 16% on each penny. But another thing, next year is reappraisal year. That means our certified rate's gonna come way the heck low.
Yes, but don't you think that there would, even though the I'm
But you're gonna be
Pollyanna here.
splitting a penny somehow that,
Yeah.
you know,
That-
it won't be,
that
you're not gonna give a
11%.
penny back to whoever it is you have to give or something like that. You're gonna give what the new certified rate says a penny is worth.
we'll give them
wherever
the
it
same
comes from.
ratio. We'll
That's
build the
when you
budget
get
the
in
same
partial
ratios.
pennies, though. That's how
Yes.
the public
Partial
works went
pennies.
from 2 cents
Yeah.
Yeah.
to 1.2 or whatever
And
over
that's a
time.
lot of the way the ambulance service wasn't at 9 cents at one time when it first started, when it up
And
there.
we moved money out of that.
there, and then they got cut in one of these too. Yeah, because we got some back from them, so.
But I'm hoping that the property tax, I know it's a reappraisal next fiscal year, that there will be still more revenue coming
Well,
in.
we went up from 630,000 for a general fund penny last year to 675 this year. The way construction's going, it's going to continue going, and the penny will get worse more next year.
I've always been pessimistic that some of that growth money gets rolled into the certified rate.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't like it either. I agree with you. It's too easy to anywhere along the line to
Get mixed in or get lost.
Mhm.
You go back to certified rate and you actually might lose money from what it would
Well,
have been.
when we first came up here, and they had one.
So
Seemed
Lisa,
like a-
knowing what the wishes of the committee are, which are to try to offset debt services, having a big bill come due 3 years from now. Knowing everything that you know, we're all on the same side.
To it, too.
What's your best recommendation on how we achieve that goal?
This is what I would say. You see the big, if the schools continue to build, what that potential bill will be. But the flip side, it's also what's happening in the general fund and ambulance and solid waste. What's coming down in the next 3 years for them too? So how do we maintain and take care of the issues that will be coming? As I said, just in this year, how many positions that we've got in, that's just a partial year, that's going to be a full year. So, I mean, it's not just the debt side, it's the operating side too, that in the next 3 years, we got to take care of.
Right.
So, yes, you move pennies out, but just on, as the mayor was saying, on the ambulance fund, it's going to, they're going to be needing money to
This,
operate.
I don't know if you caught it, but she has mentioned once or twice, very subtly, that we ought to move money, our pennies out of the debt service, back into the general fund.
That was
And
what I
Mr.
was-
Chairman says, let's don't go there now.
Well, I mean, well, this motion to the absolute opposite.
Absolute opposite.
Yeah. Because Ms. Nolan did tell me when we started this process, I'm gonna wanna discuss moving pennies from debt service general fund. I said, we'll do that toward the end. Well, I guess I'd kind of forgotten about that conversation. I guess now it's the time to have it or whatever, but yeah, her wishes are the opposite of what we're talking about here. But
Well, didn't you say just a few minutes ago that after this budget's set, we can still move money either way?
You can, this is what, let's say, we're ultimately not gonna spend, say our fund balance rises 3%, and you say, Lisa, anything that rises above 15%, we want you to commit it for potential debt service. I think there's a commitment for debt service. I think that might be a line that when we do the accounting, we will take that additional and drop it right in there. And then it won't be in that number when we say, what is our unassigned balance? We won't be using that. It's committed.
There'll be a bucket. It'll have its own bucket.
It'll have its own bucket. It'll stay in there. It's not locked. It's not locked behind the cage when it gets in debt service. It's not locked. It's there, and you could use it for that.
But that still defeats your argument about where our rating would be.
No, it
that's just on the side of the
doesn't.
rate.
It keeps the money in the general fund.
You just said anything over the 15%.
I
though.
said.
That's internally.
That's
within
our
own
internal policy at 15%.
They're gonna still see
They're gonna look
15%
at,
when they review our.
they're gonna look at
percentage.
all fund balances, whether they will add all the restricted, assigned, committed, they will add it all together. All that added together, we're less than 26%.
I'll tell you what, part of my problem with and disagreeing with you is you've done such a good job over the years on your estimates, being below what you think the revenues are going to be and being above what you think, the expenditures too, being conservative. And maybe that's part of what I feel safe
You're banking on.
putting this out here.
Okay,
Because
so-
I'm going, you mentioned a while ago, you're looking back at history, and I'm looking back at history too. And, we consistently, we pay our debts. If it came to, we have to have a tax increase, we've stood up and done that. It's not popular, none of us want to do that, but if we have to, we do. When we had a downturn in our economy, and all these other counties around us, people don't remember this now, were raising their tax rates 25, 35 cents. We were keeping ours the same or lowering it by pulling that money out of debt service, by pulling that money out of ambulance service, by being conservative. So, I think we have been. And I think that's what we're trying to do here too, Like I said, we had the same argument last year, and I remember you afterwards, when your final money came in, you were saying, this worked out good.
Yeah.
And you were bragging and saying, yeah. And
I did.
I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's what we all intended.
Yeah.
And we're still intended to do that, but I mean, keep talking to me.
All right, here's my last card that we will be talking about when we do revenue estimates. Our property and casualty reserves, based on what they have done, we're going to have to pull out over $1 million out of the additional revenue I come up with to fund that. It was almost $2 million. And insurance has been working on it to try to get down. These are claims against the county that our third-party administrator has set up. Right now, the fund balance, right now, there's, it would be what was it, Mark? It seemed like it was $2 million, and they got the fund balance to zero. And then HR took care of, hopefully, not HR, but insurance, maybe $700,000 of it.
$684,000, I think it was.
So there's 1.3 million, and it's going to have to be more because I can't, estimate down to zero because we will end up with a negative fund balance. We can't have a fund with a negative fund balance. That's where part of my revenue is going to go. any
The revenue that you don't
improvements.
have yet on this sheet.
The revenue I don't have, which would be the revenue estimates that we would be doing the 1st of June. So I still think we'll have some improvement, but the big improvement that sometimes you see, we're going to have to take that and move that into our property casualty fund. That was going to be my card that came. Wasn't expecting this conversation today. That was going to come in.
You're the one who
In
wanted to
June.
cancel next week's meeting and move it on. Not-
Well, that's okay. We would be having the same discussion
Yeah.
come June 1st.
Well, let's throw out another one in this.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor. I
But
don't.
there was to be one question, and she
Okay.
was going to go
Well, I
get
thought you were
her.
fixing- I thought you were fixing to make another motion, but.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to ask about litigation tax. Is it going to cover as much on the new building, the Justice Building, as we anticipated it would? Or are we going to have to pull from debt service on it?
Okay, let me say this. I mean, I'm not sure this answers your question.
Well, we knew we were going to have
All
to
of you
pull
know that
some
we're in
from
a
it.
major lawsuit. And I can pretty much tell you for sure that the amount of monies that we're going to collect that we call excess fees out of the judicial process is going to have a pretty substantial reduction over a period of time. Without saying anything else, I mean, it's real.
That answers my question. Thank you.
We've got a finance director who would like to add money to the general fund and take it from debt service. We've got a motion on the floor to take money from the school general fund and the school general fund and the general fund and move it to debt service. I'm wondering if there's not a compromise in here somewhere. Maybe take a penny from the schools and put it to debt service and leave the general fund where it is, or something like that. I mean.
Or do
if-
the penny committed something?
And let them put that bucket over there, you know, if we're that close on general fund, and we may not want to, personally, I don't think I can support what the finance director saying, general fund's close, I really want to add. I don't think I'm going to support you in adding to general fund, but I may not be willing, but I don't think I'm ready to take from general fund. But I like the idea of shoring up debt service, so I like everything I'm hearing. So I think we need to figure out a way to make a compromise in here, but, I mean, is there, I'm
I
asking
mean,
somebody, is there a penny from the
for
school
me,
system?
in lieu
to
of
go?
taking the money out of the general fund, I would commit it. I mean, I would have y'all vote to commit it, which then tells me
But
how to
that's,
do the accounting.
that's half a cent of
Yeah.
this conversation.
Yeah.
Unless we do a penny of committed. If you did a penny, like you said, if you did a penny from the school and a penny committed.
If it's there, we don't know yet until we.
Right, but
But you could easily come back in August and say, Lisa, you know, we've closed our books. And then we say, this, instead of projecting, this is what I think our fund balance is. Once we've closed our books and we said, okay, this is what we're going into audit with, this is what our number is. Y'all can say, okay, how much is that above than what you think you need? You know, or above our 50%. How much are we going to have in our fund balance to give us some flexibility during the year for these things that come up, like $100,000 for various and sundry
Unforeseen,
reasons, unforeseen things. You can decide that at that time. And then when people ask, how much money do we have in unassigned fund balance? You know, that committed part is just over to the side. It's not going to be part of that discussion. But it will be in the general fund in case something happens and you need to get to it.
you could act on it during the year.
But you can commit it at the beginning of the year and say, we're committing
And
it.
you don't have to wait till the next fiscal year to then do that.
Mm-mm.
So you're saying committing after you've closed the books?
I would commit after we close the books. Please don't take any more money.
Yeah.
And
Wait
commit.
till you close the books.
And it's there. And so it moves it out of the bucket of, oh, y'all got enough money to
Slush
operate.
fund, yeah.
It's
That
there.
might be a
It
good
stays
compromise.
in the general fund, but not available to spend easily, I guess, is what I'm saying.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor for the aforementioned motion. Is there any other discussion on that? All right, the motion is to move a penny and a half from the school's general fund, GPS school fund, and a half a cent from the general fund to debt service. And we're going to call the roll on that if there's no more further discussion. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
No.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
No.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
No.
Commissioner Jordan?
No. Motion fails. Are there any other motions to be had?
Well, why don't we try your compromise with them? Take the penny from the school fund and leave the general fund alone, 1 cent.
Is that a motion?
It
We have a
is.
motion to take a penny from the GPS school fund and put that to debt service. And of course, this is a stand on its own. We can have a whole discussion about earmarking money on the other. Is there a second on that one?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. Any discussion?
The only thing I will say is, yes, I do want to put, 50% limit or whatever and hold that aside. Maybe that is the best way to go about it.
That could be a whole new policy we could discuss.
Right.
To keep it, if we gotta have 15%, fine. Anything above that rolls over debt service and it takes commission action to pull it out of there, which would take 11 commissioners to do that. And that may not be as completely as secure as being in debt service, but it would give us some flexibility.
And accountability.
Yeah.
One thing that happened to me, the first year I was elected, the commissioner that was going out that I took his place was on budget. And he told me, he said, Robert, he said, your budget's gonna be okay the next year. He said, but 3 years down the line, y'all are gonna get slammed. And we did. And it was, basically what Charlie's looking ahead at, where this debt is gonna come due. And I don't want to leave another commissioner in that kind of situation to have to deal with something that we should have dealt with ourselves. And I'm not reflecting back bad on anybody in the past. They did what they felt was the best thing to do at that time. I think the best thing for us to do is, pay as we go.
And I think it's that the ripple effect too that Charlie's talking about, which is it makes it hard to vote on new projects when that number continues to grow. If we can help manage that number, we know we're going to have to build schools. It's going to make it easier. So it's more than just the next commission. It's kids, families, and portables, and all the other things, that ripple effect that trying to manage that number does for us. It's far-reaching.
I think Commissioner P's right. All of our terms are going to be concluded before this shortfall hits. The easy thing to do would be to not do any of this. But I think this is trying to help the county in the future, maybe help future commissioners, but help schools in the future by bearing some of the burden today so that it's not as tough in the future and maybe there isn't a shortfall at all in 3 years.
Of course, you could set pennies aside for building instead of bond.
That's what we're doing. We're doing that for the capital projects part now.
Yeah.
For
That's
renovations
repairs.
and additions and repairs. And Dr. Bullen, give him credit, he was the one behind that 12 years ago or something. But how much money we have not gone to bond market for because we paid cash. So,
I mean, I think that's huge.
I think the main thing to remember is what Commissioner Allen said a few minutes ago. We're all on the same side here. We're all trying to take care of tax dollars the best we can. And we have a motion to take a penny from the school GPS fund to debt service. If there's no further questions, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
No.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passes. Sorry, guys. All right, now, well, that was the motion.
Oh, we got 2 budget amendments. Yeah.
Well, we haven't approved the budget yet. We just moved the penny. But,
Okay, yeah.
I mean, one of the recommendations for the publishers last, have we actually approved the budget? We have not, have we? So,
You normally take action on this.
yeah, we've got to take action on the budget that's presented. Is this one motion for publication and all, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
For publication, of course, we'll move the penny. We'll adjust the penny out of the schools and put it into debt service.
this is basically just reaffirming everything we've done, including the last motion. So is there a motion to approve the budget as we have put together and forward for publication?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll this time.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Okay, and we've got a budget transfer for the Register of Deeds, which should...
Circuit Court.
Why are we doing this tonight
Oh,
instead
yes,
of
Circuit Court,
On the
okay.
agenda.
our regular meeting?
Sorry, what?
I said, why are we doing this tonight instead of our regular meeting when the other one, a
Yeah,
while ago, we
these are-
said we're gonna not do it tonight?
These-
These are transfers.
These are transfers just within, so what we're gonna be doing, it changes some functions.
Function.
So that
This one
matters
just is
which-
within.
Which budget meeting we do it?
It
Okay.
matters if we're going this way or if we're within.
Okay.
And both of these are within. And these don't have to go to the
And
full
your
commission.
action is final on that.
Yeah. So the circuit court is requesting additional monies for jury expense, legal services, and interpreting and office supplies, with monies coming out of other charges. $17,000 for jury and witness expense, $4,000 for legal services, $3,000 for office supplies.
Well, the wishes of the committee. Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I just have one question. How do we miss the mark so far on the jury and witness expense? The amended was 55, the budgeted and amended was 55, and then it says amended appropriation date was 72.
But, yeah, that's what it would be.
That's what it will
Right,
be.
no, that's what I'm saying. How do we,
You never know
Depends on how
on
many trials
those.
they have, how
Depends on-
many jurors they have to have.
We have a murder case that they
Just-
gotta
If
get
murder
expert
case, they gotta
witness
question
on.
or whatever.
How many cases, so.
does it,
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. And now we get to the budget transfers for Register of Deeds.
And she's apparently wanting to do some computer upgrades that requires $3,000, and she's moving it from DP supplies to DP equipment, and she receives revenue that funds this.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passed. Anything else to come forward tonight?
We need to approve this. We have prices for publication of the budget from Murfreesboro Post of $1,680 and from the Daily News Journal of $4,116. So we are recommending the Murfreesboro Post.
Motion to approve the
Second.
Commissioner P. and Schaefer. Any further discussion? They both meet all legal requirements, correct?
Yes.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. That it? All right, our meeting for Thursday, June 1st is hereby canceled. I take it, and our next meeting will be our regularly scheduled meeting, Thursday, June 8th. I do appreciate everybody's good working together and cohesiveness, and it's been my 15th year on the budget committee, and I believe this is about as smooth as I've seen it go. So I told somebody last night, if we can keep Don Odom as director of schools, Mike Fitzhugh as sheriff, and Ernest Burgess as mayor, we're going to slide right along. So thank you very much. We are adjourned.
You guys should say some motion, because